For more now on the prison protest in eastern Victoria, we're joined on the phone by the ABC reporter Gus Goswell, who's in Sale. Gus, can you take us through how police and authorities managed to quell this riot overnight?
Good morning, Mel. I've spoken with police this morning, and we've been told that the last of the prisoners who are maintaining their protest action or their disturbance on the roof of one of the prison buildings, the last of those inmates came down from the roof about 3:20 a.m. this morning. When I was at the prison last night, those inmates had been surrounded. There were officers on the ground. Police negotiators were on the scene. Members of the riot squad were arriving at the prison, and I assume that through the night you can see that water cannons were being used. So eventually they've managed to wear down those inmates.
How many police and authority figures and riot police were there? It sounds like it was quite a deployment.
It was a deployment, and it was hard to tell the exact numbers because we were being kept a couple of hundred metres from where the prisoners had scaled the building. Certainly there were at least 5 fire engines at some point. Several ambulances were on scene, and yes, many police as well, and different sorts of police, officers maintaining the boundary, but also other officers going into what was a very volatile situation to try to quell this riot.
So were there any injuries, given we're talking things like water cannons and riot police and force being used?
Amazingly, police are saying there were no injuries and no arrests. And you can see that there were officers surrounding the prison, and there were also prisoners on the roof for several hours, but we're being told there were no arrests and also no injuries.
So can you take us through what led to this protest action by prisoners and their breakout onto the roof there? What led to them doing this, and how did they manage to get onto the roof and break out of their containment areas?
Yeah, more information's coming out about this today, but from what we can piece together, the inmates were told to return to their cells at some point about 3 or 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. A group of them refused to do so, armed themselves with gym equipment and also garden equipment, and set fire to several bins. And from there, the disturbance escalated, and as you can see, it took hours to bring under control. There have been concerns raised about conditions at the prison lately. I've seen a letter written by the Community and Public Sector Union, the union that represents the prison workers, and they wrote to the management of the Fulham prison expressing concerns for their members' safety because of what they said was a reduction in staff numbers. And from what we're hearing, the prisoners themselves also have some concerns about the current arrangements at the prison. So
is there any history of this sort of behaviour amongst prisoners at Fulham Prison? Has this happened before in Sale?
This is the first large-scale disturbance that I'm aware of, but there were two attacks last year that made news. Earlier in the year, a man was bashed over the head with an object that has been reported as being a rolling pin, and he died several weeks later in hospital. And then late last year, and this is another incident that the Community and Public Sector Union is pointing to, a man was stabbed with what's believed to be an improvised knife, and there were several injuries in that disturbance as well. So while there hasn't been a history of rioting, certainly within the last 12 months, there have been a couple of attacks that have raised questions about staffing levels and also security at the prison.
And just finally, given there were no arrests, does that mean there's going to be no charges, or are police planning to prosecute any of the prisoners over this action?
I asked police that when I spoke with them this morning. They weren't able to give much detail on that topic. I asked whether or not police would be back at the prison today, conducting interviews and following up on the disturbance. Police weren't able to tell me that, so it's yet to be seen, but at this stage all we're being told is that no one was arrested. We're yet to see whether or not anyone will be charged and what the wash-up from this will be.
All right, we'll keep in touch with you through the morning about that. Thanks very much, Gus Goswell in Sale.
Thanks, Mel.